Happy New Year. Welcome to our January DAAC meeting. I'm Austin Gray. I'm the aeronautics coordinator for our section here at DelDOT. Get started. Every presentation we do at DelDOT starts with our mission statement, which is excellence in transportation for every trip, every move, one. We also start every presentation off with safety slides. So you'll see, we're only 2 weeks into the new year. Obviously, the numbers reset at the start of the year. We're at 2 fatalities for the year already, which is a decrease from this time last year. Not that that's anything significant with the number that we're at so far. We did end 2024 with 131 fatalities, which is a decrease from 2023 by about six fatalities. But you look at some of those person types, pedestrians, motorcyclists, those numbers went up. So those are things that we're constantly watching and figuring out where we can invest to make the best improvements to keep the populations safe on our roadways. And with that, we will move into our meeting agenda. I will go ahead and call the roll. So if you are here online, please say so. Jeff Corman.
Yep, I'm here.
Thank you. Captain Charlton. Or Jonathan Bush, alternate. All right. Richard Horseman.
I'm here.
Thank you. Mr. Bryant. Here. Thank you. Jeremiah Hardy.
I'm here.
Thank you. Lysands Alexander.
Present.
Great, nice to meet you. Glad to have you here in person with us. Matt Jordan.
Can you hear me?
Matt Jordan, are you online?
Yeah, that's great.
Sorry, I think we can hear you. Yeah, you're coming in a little,
Yeah.
little muffled. Okay.
Thank you.
Nick Ryan.
Oh, yeah.
Nick Ryan, are you online? And Ben Daniel. I think we have a quorum, so I think we're good to proceed. So again, welcome. Thank you everyone for being here with us today. And I'd also like to welcome Ms. Lysands Alexander to the council. Just to let you all know, Ms. Kimberly Shropshire has stepped down from her position as of our last meeting. So we reached out to Ms. Alexander and we're glad to welcome her. And she's an Air Force veteran.
Yeah.
So thank you for your service and we're looking forward to your service here on the council as well. And you are I think you're one of the at-large representatives. So that's your seat on the DAAC. Just some administrative updates from us in our office. We did send out the 2025 airport operator licenses to those that operate public use facilities where they've been signed at least. So if you haven't received it yet, they should be mailed out soon, and we'll also send out copies via email to public use airport operators in the state. We also sent out reappointment letters. We will be sending out reappointment letters to all of the DAAC members whose terms expired at the end of 2024. For our new members. So those of you that are restarting your term, you'll be getting those shortly. We also have in the room with us today 2 of our aeronautics interns, Bryce Kent and Tyler Maltby. They're both students at Delaware State University in their aviation management program. Is that correct? So we're glad to have them. They help us with a lot of our day-to-day tasks, airspace obstruction reviews, our aircraft counting program, a few other administrative tasks as needed. So they're a huge help, and we're glad to have them here with us right now. Any comments, questions before I proceed? Everyone should have received a copy of the meeting minutes from our October 23rd, 2024 meeting, our last meeting. Liddy sent those out a few weeks ago. Is there a motion to approve those minutes?
I first.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
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 Okay, minutes from our October 23rd meeting have been approved. Moving into our new business. As you all know, our previous DAAC chair, Mr. Steve Williams, resigned from his position in last July. So we will be opening the floor for nominations for a new DAAC chair at this time, and then also voting on the new DAAC chair. So the DAAC chairperson is kind of, hopefully someone that we would like to facilitate these meetings, really leads, the organization of what this group wants to see from the aeronautics office, and helps guide, the direction of the office in terms of the aviation system in the whole state. At this time, are there any nominations for DAAC chair? I'd like to nominate Mr. Robert Bryant for DAAC chair. You accept?
I accept.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Are there any other nominations for DAAC chair at this time? Okay, well, at this time, we will now vote on the nomination for Mr. Robert Bryant to be the new chair of the DAAC. All in favor, please say aye.
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 All opposed? Okay, Mr. Robert Bryant is the new chair of the DAAC.
Well, thank you.
We will certainly be talking more, and we'll get you up to speed on a lot of things and make sure we set you up for success in leading the group.
Good. Looking forward to it. Good.
Moving into our next item, everyone can see the screen, right? I haven't just been aimlessly moving slides. Right? Okay, cool.
Yes.
I'd like to show you all the jet fuel revenue for the year so far. I think this is valuable to do with this group. I think we do it at the end of the fiscal year, and I'd like to do it halfway as well, just to give you a picture of what we're bringing in revenue wise. That dedicated jet fuel tax that's coming right to our program. That legislation was passed and enacted, put into law, I think 2020. And so since then, the department's been collecting that 5 cent per gallon tax on the jet fuel. So these are those numbers right now in front of you. You see outlined in orange the current 2025 taxable gallons sold, and then the revenue produced from those. So we're at 75,000 in revenue so far for the fiscal year, starts July 1. So we're at the halfway point right now in the fiscal year. So those numbers, I think, are not super helpful without seeing it in the context of the rest of the previous years, which you have the numbers in front of you, but I put it into a nice bar graph. So I think that helps kind of just show trends. And at least from what I'm taking from this chart is I don't know if I see a whole lot of a trend. Looks to me like the revenue has been pretty stable, except for that large spike in December fiscal year 2020. You see each line is a different color, and those represent the fiscal years. So looks like revenue and gallons sold have been relatively stable. I zoomed in a little bit just to kind of exclude that large jump, so you could see a more granular picture without the outlier. And again, from my analysis of it, I was really trying hard to see what kinds of trends could I pull from this. But I leave that up to the council to determine what is your objective and goal with this source of funding. I think ultimately, I think we all would agree you want to see those numbers over time, increase. And so I think that warrants conversation, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. Randall Wiedemann will be talking about his progress on the state aviation system plan update, which this is a key part of that, ensuring that we have revenue to continue to fund our program and the projects that we plan for. Any comments, thoughts, questions on these charts, the numbers? Should I adjust it for a second?
Can you make these charts and graphs available to the members?
Absolutely. Yeah, I can send this out. Anything else? Our next item of business is just an update on our state funding programs. So as hopefully you're all aware, we have initiated a new program as of the start of fiscal year 2025 to provide state funding for our privately owned public use airports. So those are those airports that are not eligible for federal funding through the FAA's funding programs, but are still publicly available. And so the state wants to provide support for those. So you'll see we did select 6 projects for funding this fiscal year. You'll see what those projects are, the approximate state share, and then the approximate amount of that state share. So that amount, that dollar amount you're seeing on all the way at the end of each bullet point, that's the amount of the state share, not the total project cost. So you'll see, and if I go back just a little bit, you'll see, revenue for that our dedicated jet fuel source revenue brings in annually is about just under $200,000 on average. And you'll see that projects that we're funding are substantially higher than that if you total all of those. So that difference is supported by the Transportation Trust Fund. And so that's also part of this conversation as well that I think we'll be getting into with the system plan update is, what kinds of funding sources, do we need to be able to continue to sustain projects like these? And, if we want to see more of these types of projects and be able to allocate more funding, where does that funding come from? How can we get there? Those kinds of questions. We have set the funding aside for these projects. The funding is, allocated, and we're working on circulating the project agreement letters throughout the department right now so that we can finalize and so that these projects can get kicked off at the airports themselves. Questions on any of these? Next, I will stop sharing my screen and turn it over to Randall for an update on the system plan and also an update on the advanced air mobility feasibility study. So I'm going to put out of this technology, see if I can do it correctly. And we're gonna clear that. And then Randall, you should be able to share your screen now.
Fantastic. Okay. See if everybody can see this.
Got it.
Got it? Awesome. Yep. Awesome. Okay. We have started the update of the Delaware Aviation System Plan. This is something we do about every 5 years. And this year, there's a number of things that have come to light that are really pretty important relative to the system. The first thing that we identify are the issues that we're going to be dealing with. And, these are not necessarily positive or negative, but they're things that have to be dealt with. And one of the things that, was just mentioned was the funding program for privately owned public use airports, among other things. There's funding, of course, for the publicly owned airports. That has been ongoing, basically from the 70s. But the new program, which is the privately owned funding, that is where, we're going to have to look for money, essentially. What's going on, and Austin has mentioned this, and as fuel fees and taxes decrease as there are increasing uses of electric vehicles, so they're buying less fuel, and those revenues which come from fuel taxes into the state transportation fund decline. They have less money to fund to the aviation program, other than what you saw on that nickel a gallon situation. And those, one of the best years was $200,000. So our needs are much greater than that. So we constantly borrow from the highway side to fund the programs that we have on the aviation side. So we want to continue that. And the question is, where do we find that funding? Well, one thing that I've suggested, which has probably fallen on deaf ears, amongst other things, has been the nickel fuel tax applying to the airline at Newcastle Airport. Now they did have an exemption for that in order to bring a Velo in, and but at some point, if they have a great investment in that airport, they're not going to leave and so forth. If the airline is buying 5 million gallons a year, that's 250,000 dollars. If they're buying 10 million gallons, that's $500,000 that's added to the program. And so that would be important to at least discuss that. Whether or not it could get done, we don't know. But that, and again, I can say that as a consultant, not being part of state government, I'm not privy to what agreements were made, with the airline and so forth. So, but that would be something that where I would at least look. The other thing that is coming down the pike is the advanced air mobility and the potential development of vertiports. I know that doesn't seem like a big thing right now, but it is. There's a lot of money into it, and chances are that is something that we are going to be seeing in the future. I've already talked about the airline service and fuel fee. The runway extension at Summit and Delaware Coastal, and the rehab of Shandell Airport runway. Those are all, projects that are up for consideration in this, first phase of this system plan. Another thing that, we're looking to try to get out in front of is land use around airports. Make sure that they're compatible uses that occur. Too often, the profit motive puts a residential development right at the end of the runway, and those two land uses are very incompatible. So there's mechanisms to work through that to a win-win scenario, and we can talk about that at some point, but there are ways to make that work. But it does, you do need to get out in front of it. The electrical grid and charging infrastructure, not just at airports, but across the state. That's a big issue with the growing EV population. We are talking about workforce development and aviation training, DSU. I'm sorry that the head of that program, Charlton, is that his name, is not here. But that would be a case where they are making strides in that, and we need to partner with them on that. We have an aircraft operations accounting program that's very important. We're working out some technological kinks in the system, but you'll see those at your airports, and those are an important part now that the FAA is not publishing operational or based aircraft data in the 5010 form. So the state is going to hold all of that information. Economic development of the civil air terminal with a new joint use agreement, that's a big deal. And that could, again, bring a lot of jobs, particularly related to aviation into play. So those are the issues. And I don't know, maybe I'll go through the goals and objectives, and then if anyone wants to add issues to this list, we could talk about it then. Is that a good way to go about it?
Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay. So this aviation system goals and objectives, the definition of a goal is just this desired end, and it's pretty broad. Goals may not be achievable, but they are certainly desired ends. Like You know, we can desire to be perfect, but we're never gonna reach that. But that can be our goal. Objectives to getting there can be made, which are measurable and scaled to measure that goal achievement. The goals that we used in the system plan reflect the DelDOT Long Range Transportation Plan goals. We adapted those to aviation. In some cases, the language is a bit awkward, but we wanted to conform that so that both plans are moving in the same direction. There's 7 goals with multiple objectives, and we'll run through them right now. The first goal is economic vitality. I'm not going to read the actual goal, but the objectives are kind of important. One of those is to look at this new form of aviation, advanced air mobility and vertiports, and integrate those into the transportation network. We generally have an economic impact assessment of aviation every 5 years or so to reflect, the changes in technology and commerce related to aviation. That's a very important measure of progress. We are expanding the funding program for the privately owned airports, focusing on their needs and economic potential. And then looking at public-private partnerships that could enhance aviation facilities in Delaware. Safety and security. One of the things that is done periodically is an obstruction evaluation for Delaware airports. There is a review that DelDOT Aeronautics does of building permits for structures that might have an issue with these imaginary surfaces that come off of airports. We want to develop outreach materials to talk about advanced air mobility, eVTOL aircraft, and that kind of thing. We're looking at, another thing that we've done in the past is look at emergency response protocols, which involve airports and aviation. We have an annual safety inspection of airports of the 5010, the master records. They're called safety inspections. We look at obstruction. We look at all the facilities and that type of thing on the airport. And there's a 3-year rotation. So we're doing basically 3 of those per year. The quality of life, pardon me. This is quality of life can mean a lot of things. But in this case, we're looking at more environmental issues that surround airports. So we want to make sure that there's updated land use and zoning guidance, and because of potential noise issues, promoting sustainable practices at airports, and then if there's an engagement program that we can be involved in to raise awareness, we've got that, and some of those are included in the system plan. Some of that will be in the advanced air mobility outreach and the program that we're dealing with there. Again, just a moment. Quality of life. Oops, this is not quality of life again, but this is more related to access, providing access to safe, attractive, and reliable transportation options. And for example, state-funded maintenance programs for aging infrastructure. Oh, this is system. This is system preservation, and the system preservation is to make sure that our maintenance programs are at work and we have money available, we want to look at runway extension opportunities, such as Summit and Delaware Coastal Airport, to accommodate the aircraft and the commercial needs at those facilities. And we want to develop a preservation strategy for turf runways that meets state aviation priorities. In other words, we don't want to lose airports along the way if we can help it. We want to develop guidelines for integrating electric aircraft charging infrastructure at airports. So that will assist in the system preservation. The system management and operations. We want to make sure that our data management platforms are up to date, and that includes tracking aircraft operations, perhaps having facility data available and that type of thing. Delaware wants to be on the cutting edge of that, so the system plan is going to help with that. We want to partner with DSU to expand the workforce training and job simulation programs. We want to implement a priority rating system for state-funded projects. We've already started that, but we want to refine that as we go along. We want to evaluate the potential and the cost of adding more privately owned public use airports into the system, one of which is Eagle Crest, which has applied, or at least has expressed a desire. And so before we do that, we want to know, well, what would that cost to bring them in, and what value does that bring to the system as well. So we would look at that we would evaluate that in the system plan. There's a travel and tourism goal, and that's simply partnering with the Delaware Tourism Office. That might involve the use of aviation for events, for Wilmington, the seasonal beach destinations, and even the natural park and scenic areas. And finally, there's a customer service and communication. Whole idea there is to make sure that we're talking to the DAAC and that we're prioritizing strategies based upon your input to what we're doing. We want to make sure that the public is involved in our workshops, particularly for the advanced air mobility type things, and any future aviation trends. We want to improve online tools and any GIS resources that will help frame the aviation system so that the policymakers and the public can view that. And finally, we want to communicate these effectively to the general public, whether that's through social media or the website programs or whatever. So those are the goals and objectives, and I think that if there are any, if we can just sort of really, before we get into the advanced air mobility work that we're doing, we could open it up to any particular issues that somebody wants to talk about. The floor is open for that. I'll go back to the original issues that we were showing. And I guess the whole point is, if we've missed something, it would be great to know that.
Yeah, and I'll just clarify that the DAAC, we really want to be the review committee for this system plan update.
Yes.
So as we work on this project, we certainly want your feedback. If there's anything we're missing or we haven't elaborated on enough, or those are the kinds of comments we want to make sure we incorporate. You all being advisors of the state's aviation system, those are the kinds of comments we want to incorporate.
Yes, absolutely. Okay. Well, let me just finish off with the the advanced air mobility. We're sort of in the final stages of the research portion of this, and the group that we've assembled is going to meet in February to talk about this and basically make recommendations going forward as to what the state could do. And this policy and implementation is kind of the payoff of that work effort. And I'll just tell you what we're going to look at. We're going to talk about strategic vertiport location criteria, that being where to locate the airport, the vertiports. The system plan is going to take that information and get more granular with it. We're going to look at policy and funding incentives, what can be done and how it can be done through state government. We're going to look at the workforce development and figure out, how to value that. What is it going to be worth to Delaware? And, we are going to use some in-plan numbers to help analyze that. We're going to look at some implementation phases, sort of a roadmap of what the phased activity would be over time, and then how to engage stakeholders in this, and who are the stakeholders? The government entities, private sector, academic institutions, utility providers, and so forth. So those are that's what we're doing there, and I don't need to go into too much detail because we'll have a lot of that in February. But this is just an overview of what we're finishing up with in that. So with that, I can stop sharing the screen and open it up to questions or comments. Well,
Questions?
obviously did such a good job that there's no, speechless. So I'll kick it back to you, Austin.
Thanks,
So
man.
I'll raise my presentation again.
By the way, if you can see the screen, Lee Christian is a new member of our staff. He's with R.A. Wiedemann Associates, and he'll be working on some of these projects as we go forward. But just introducing him.
All right, can you all see my screen again?
Yes.
Yes, I can.
All right, we'll now move into our individual member updates. So I will start with, this is your time to provide any updates on, if you're an operator at a public use airport, provide updates on that, or, whatever your role is within the DAAC, provide updates on that. So we'll start with, Mr. Jeff Foreman.
Hello, can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Good. Sorry, I had a Delaware Electric Co-op meeting today and got jumbled up. But anyway, here at Corman Airport, our new, thanks to DelDOT, our AWOS should be going in here in the next 3 weeks or so. So we got that going on. We'll have a taxiway to pave hopefully next fall, the next round of funding, hopefully. And of course, weather warms up here, we'll be doing our seal coating. Other than that, everything's kind of status quo here. At Laurel Airport, we'll be starting in the next week or so, hopefully while it's still froze, to start the runway clearing or obstacle clearing on the north end of the airport. So the only thing I do have at Laurel is the FAA called me and wants to terminate the instrument approach in there because the runway doesn't meet FAA requirements. I don't know if the requirements have changed or what have you, but they're trying to get rid of the instrument approach in there.
I think they have been, tightening those up over time.
Yeah. So that's what I can tell you. I'd still like to get an instrument approach here at Corman, but that's an uphill battle.
Yep.
Great. Captain Charlton, if you've joined us, this is your chance to provide any updates. All right. Richard Horseman,
Nothing new.
thank you. Robert Bryan,
Down in Sussex County, the southern third of the state where it's supposed to be warmer than you guys up north, we got pounded with snow last week, Monday, 12 inches. Took us a while to dig out of it. We had our primary runway, parallel taxiway and terminal apron opened by Wednesday. The entire airport paved surfaces all plowed by Thursday. 3-foot snowbanks along taxiways and runway pavement edges. We've even got some 7-foot tall snowbanks around some of the parking apron paved edges. The construction of our new parallel taxiway Bravo begins hopefully in late March, early April. I've mentioned that project before. Due to the availability of funding from the FAA's Airport Improvement Program, construction of that 5,500-foot taxiway has been broken down into 4 separate phases. Each phase will take a year to complete, so we're not looking until 2027 or 28 before the project is completed in its entirety. Those airports that are eligible for AIP funding, identified or recognized in the National Plan of Integrated Airport Systems. We're currently working with the FAA Airport District Office in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. We submitted our capital improvement plan for high dollar capital projects that we would like to implement over the next 3 to 5 years. And of course, a runway extension is key. Is a key desire of Sussex County, so much so that we actually, Sussex County hired Randall's company to help us draft an application for the FAA's new general aviation runway extension pilot program. That's a new program that was co-sponsored by brain fade.
Harper?
Yes. Tom Carper managed to squeeze that program into the reauthorization, into the FAA reauthorization this past year. And of course, fingers are crossed in Sussex County that will be one of the 2 airports per year selected for that program. So that's about all that's happening down in Sussex County. Like most airports, this is our slow period right now. Things will begin to pick back up as the temperatures warm up, we get closer to the spring, and looking forward to a new year.
thank you. Jeremiah Hardy, any updates from you?
Not at this time, but I would like to say to Randall, sorry for the delay on the paperwork you were asking me for. Next time, just shoot me an email and I'll
Okay.
try and get it to you faster.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
Alrighty.
Appreciate that.
Yep.
Ms. Lasanz Alexander, any comments, updates from you?
No, I have no report.
Thank you. Matt Jordan,
No, I don't have anything going on here at Delaware Air Force Base. It's business as usual. Thank you.
Nick Ryan,
Happy New Year, everyone. No update from me.
great, thank you so much.
No,
And
no down south.
that's it, okay. All right. point, we'll move into public comment. If there are any members of the public online, now is your chance to provide comment. Okay, hearing none, we will move on and wrap up with notice that our next meeting is scheduled for April 16th, 2025. As always, you all are welcome to reach out to me at any point if you have any questions, comments. Please, provide feedback on the information we sent out about the system plan, the advanced air mobility study. I think we mentioned the date for that next meeting is February 19th. So we do have a separate committee set up for that. But those are public meetings. Those are open to anybody that wants to join. So that's.
Can a Zoom link be sent out for that?
Yep.
Or,
Sure.
okay.
Absolutely. And those get posted on the state's public meeting calendar too. So that those are available to anybody that's interested in curious. I can make sure it gets out to those that are interested for sure. Okay. And so our next meeting, April 16th, 2025, and we'll be sure to send out meeting materials, minutes, and any other information for them. And if there are no further questions or comments, we will wrap up, and I hope everyone has a good night.
Thank you very
Okay.
much.
Thanks a lot.
You too.
Yep,
Appreciate it.
thank you. Everybody have a
Thank
good
you.
night.